There we are.
All right, and we are alive.
Yeah.
We
Hopefully
don't even
without,
know what we're going to talk about.
I know.
Spent so long trying to figure out this stupid live stream thing.
Yeah, I
It's like
know.
a little different problem each time.
Yep. Of course.
Friggin' software can never just be software. It's always like in a state of flux.
Oh, and all the constant updates. I mean, that in
Mhm.
itself could be, at least for a moment, we could probably just talk about that.
Yeah.
Like everything keeps changing arbitrarily.
Hmm.
Like controls that used to be in one place are now in a different place, or like a feature that you used to use is now gone, replaced by something you don't care about, or
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Well, like
really
the program we use to like edit videos and stuff, it's constantly like, there's a new version. Do you want to update it? And I usually push it off. And then when I finally do, like the very next time I open it, it's like, there's a new version. And it's like,
yeah,
the fuck?
I know. Everything's like that. And then of course if you're like cloud software like Microsoft 360 or whatever, and then and Adobe stuff, then you have no choice. It just is different.
Yep.
Like, great, thanks.
Zoom seems to be that way for me. Like, because
Mhm.
mine is like totally different from yours. And I wonder if maybe you just don't update it and
It
might
usually
not
just
want
auto
the auto up.
updates.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really
Weird.
strange. That's very yeah, dude, the updates, man. That's like, oh my God, I can't stand that.
Hmm.
And
Yet we never
it's
get
like,
an update for our government.
nope, nope. It just gets bigger and more bloated. That's well, yeah, like I, man, it's why change something? Like why does it have to change? Why not just, I don't know, make something functional and leave it that way? It's like trying to reinvent hammers or something, right? Like they keep trying to do it, but at the end of the day, a regular ass hammer is basically good enough.
I mean, change is inevitable, but maybe like every 6 months or something, unless it's like a
Well,
total like bug that's making it just not work or something.
well,
But
the problem is who is making the changes, because what you end up with, you have designers making changes, not engineers. Where engineering, the philosophy of it is like incremental improvement and improvements with purpose, right? Like there has to be a reason. I don't mind if something is improved because it is actually better, but to change something and just make it different just cuz, that's
yeah.
really annoying,
Well,
you
and if you
know?
ever like look at what's new, it's
Mm.
it's always stupid shit. Like we changed it from military gray to ocean gray.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
okay.
the most infuriating thing to me, like Android is like this. I don't know about Apple stuff, but like messaging, it would like the things that are down there changed after an update, and it's really annoying. Like the emoji button is right next to send, and I've accidentally sent many times. You know, it's like, why is that? Does anybody ever use this stuff before they put it out? But and actually, it's like the Internet of Things too. We just talked about IoT a while back, um, but like I just watched a video that a guy put out where he got a his dishwasher broke, like permanently broke. He couldn't. He's like, it's an electrical thing. It's kind of whatever. And he went and got a new one, a Bosch, like a decent, high quality, like kind of not top of the line but close.
Hmm.
Uh, and he went and installed it, and he's like, oh yeah, and installed real easy. And then he's looking at it, and well, for one, the controls, you open the front and the controls are on the top of the front, not on the face of the dishwasher.
I've seen
It's
that.
touch screen and it's fidgety. He's like, it's kind of weird. Like it's not very positive that you're touching it or that you're selecting something. Um, and then he's like, okay, well, first things first, we'll do a rinse. a rinse cycle, just a test to make sure there's no leaks, whatever. I don't need to run an entire cycle. And he's looking at it for like half an hour trying to figure out how to initiate a rinse cycle, and
Yeah.
he can't. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to look in the manual then. Well, and it's talking about in the manual, it's talking about all the different cycles and things, and there's like an asterisk next to a couple, and down in the bottom it's like, oh, in order to access these features you need the app. And so it like, he's like, okay, well, that's fine. I guess I could download that maybe. But it's like, oh, no. You download the app, right? But you also have to create an account with like a cloud server, and that manages the communication. You don't have local communication. It's not like
And to
Bluetooth.
protect the safety of your dishwasher, you need
Yeah.
two-factor authentication.
Yeah. Well, and his complaint was like, well, it's a privacy and security issue. Like this unknown, he doesn't know how secure it is. And it's like, oh, now you're giving unfettered network access to this device just to do something that there just ought to be a button for it, right? It's like, how hard is that?
Maybe that's the point.
Mm-hmm. Well, his
Maybe
thing
that's
kind of
the
segued.
back door that the government's been wanting, you know?
Well, his that there's that too, yeah. And but his main, like, I guess, thought pattern was leading towards planned obsolescence. In that,
Mhm.
like, now at that point, if it is totally dependent on this server to operate, right, to basically do most of the functions, all the company has to do if they want you to buy a new one is just shut down the server and come up with some stupid excuse like, oh, it's outdated, blah blah blah, but you could buy a whole new dishwasher now,
Right.
um, and connect to
Or
the server.
or that silly touch screen on the top of the door, right where all the steam is coming
Yeah,
out. Like,
I know.
imagine, can you just pop that little unit out and replace it? Probably not.
Oh no, it's integrated into the
Yeah,
top. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
It's the like, that's why I'm so big on like right to repair and stuff, because like
Mhm.
we need as consumers to encourage manufacturers to make things repairable. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying they got to give us service manuals or supply parts indefinitely, but like at least build things with the idea that the consumer, the user, could take it apart and do basic stuff, basic things, right?
I mean, if a service manual has been written, why not make it available for purchase, even?
Yeah, yeah,
Like you can make money off of it because
yeah.
somebody put the trouble in to write it. And in
Well,
fact, what like when you don't have the right to repair, you're spending all this money and resource on creating the service manuals so you guys can do the repair,
mhm.
but then you put all that effort into that and you're not making money off of that. Like,
Well, yeah, and especially after a time, right? When you're no longer even supporting the device, well, then okay, release the documentation to the public for old stuff. But of course, they don't want to do that. They want you to buy the newest, shiniest thing. Um, well, and yeah, it is like some companies do that. Car manufacturers, of course, we get factory service manuals and stuff.
mhm,
They're expensive, but you can get one. And I'll
yeah.
tell you what, if you spend $200 on a factory service manual and it helps you figure something out quick, in a quick amount of time, uh, or save maybe buying parts you don't need, and like actually fix the problem, then it's worth every penny.
Unless you get a BMW service
Yeah,
manual and
yeah,
they're like, you need BMW special tool 73 stroke B.
yeah. Oh
Mm,
yeah. In fact, like in the thing we were doing, it was like I think three or four special tools were
hmm.
needed,
Yeah.
which one of them we just made something out of a paper clip.
Yep. Saved like $70 on a
Yeah,
tool by using a paper clip.
I know. Oh man. Yeah,
Crazy.
that's uh I know a lot of people probably aren't that excited about the concept of right to repair, probably because they don't even want to know how things work. They don't want to be bothered to fix things themselves. But like it trickles down, or I guess up in this case, because it's like, well, a lot of the companies are restricting information and they're suing repair shops. And so
Oh,
it's like, if
yeah.
so it's like now you got to go directly to, imagine when we ran the printer repair business. Like, what if HP came and sued us for fixing their printers? So it's like, oh well, you could go to the local shop and spend like $70 getting a thing fixed, or you could take it to HP, which there are no, you'd have to like, I don't know how it would work. You drive really really far and drop it off and spend like $200 or $300 and stuff. Like,
I, is that kind of uh like you and I care a lot about being able to repair things and planned obsolescence and stuff, but are people actually like just apathetic about it, or are they actually opposed to that? Because I know there are a lot of people who make these arguments like, oh, it's capitalism. They have a right to sell whatever they want to sell. And, like you can't put a restriction on making them let you repair their thing or something. Like I can see that being phrased as an oppression or a regulation or something. The
I
right to
yeah
repair is
I could see
oppressing
that.
the market.
I could certainly see that argument, and I guess I'm fine with that, because really what it comes down to is a cultural shift of like, we as consumers need to demand from manufacturers more and more, like put pressure on them, and
Mm,
only buy from companies, like, as whenever possible, buy from a company that actually is consumerist, not anti-consumerist. That some a company that like respects the customers,
yeah,
and the more we do that, these other companies, they're not going to be able to get away with it because nobody's going to be buying their stuff.
yeah.
And but I think apathy is certainly a factor, though. It's like people are like, oh, whatever, I'll just buy another one. But it's like,
Definitely
well,
next time I get a phone, I'm gonna go with whatever it is you're using because
unihertz.
Unihertz, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I've looked into some of their phones and they've got some cool shit. Like
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
pretty
they
good
do.
prices too,
Oh
and you
yeah.
can repair them. So
Yep, exactly. And not only that, but
win-win-win.
this their site has guides, and they sell parts.
Hmm.
Like, oh yeah, you bust your screen, you just go to their site and buy another screen.
Yeah, and it's not like you can't have a very successful business doing that because
Mhm.
I mean, history is replete with examples.
Yeah.
Like the old school Sears, Roebuck, Craftsman, all these, like
Hmm.
where people used to equate them, with quality
Yeah.
and durability and stuff. Like
And
you
having
don't
a how
find
like,
that often
well, you have
anymore.
companies like, well, yeah, Craftsman used to be a lifetime warranty.
Hmm.
So if you bust a tool, you just go into Sears and they give you another one. Same
Yep.
with Nordstrom. Nordstrom's that way. If something happens to an article of clothing or whatever, you just go in and they'll get you another one. Because
Still?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, lifetime warranty.
Huh.
So, and they seem to be pretty successful. It's like, obviously things fluctuate and whatnot, but like it demonstrates that it's possible to
Right.
sell something that lasts forever and still make a ton of money. Because like Sears, for instance, their products, their appliances and things they sold, it's like they'd sell an appliance. It was well made. It was designed to be worked on. They also sold parts. So
Yeah.
like, maybe you don't make quite as much money selling parts. Well, maybe you do. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, it really depends. But like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like there are other ways to do it. Even if you want planned obsolescence, I just offer to sell the parts and let people repair them
yeah.
if they're breaking constantly,
Hmm.
then you're
Yeah,
making money over and over and over again on the parts. And
exactly.
if
Well,
people
and
really like a phone and get used to it and don't want to learn all the new buttons on the newest phone, like they could just keep theirs and keep fixing it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads into kind of like a really critical aspect of that, which is the environment.
Hmm.
It's way more eco-friendly to be repairing things than it is to be throwing them away and buying another one,
Yeah.
you know?
And
And there, right there, is probably the lever that you could use to encourage other people to get behind this movement. Because
yeah,
even if they themselves don't want to repair things, most people can comprehend the environmental impact of all the garbage stuff in landfills and stuff, you know? because like even when you send things to e-cycle, a lot of stuff still ends up in the landfill.
Yeah. Huh. I was, I had a thought. What was it? Was it about the environment? I can't remember now.
Yeah, dang it.
Oh well.
That always
Uh,
seems to happen.
oh, I did see something the other day, maybe a couple weeks ago, that some of the stuff about like solar power and why it's bad for the environment is
Mhm.
actually kind of like um, propaganda because it's basically like glass and aluminum almost entirely, which
Uh, well,
not
no,
really
there's
bad for the.
there's some other minerals too that are a part of it as well.
Hmm.
At least with current solar technology. Solar's not nearly as bad as wind. I mean, again, there, I
Wind is
guess
bad?
per well, it can be, yeah. Like for birds and things like that, like the propellers can strike birds and kill them, which is just like a known thing that happens.
Stoking cars. Like
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
nobody's
that's
being like, well, we shouldn't use cars because of the birds, you
no,
know.
no, or aircraft.
Yeah.
But it's not an either or thing.
Birds hit my friggin' kitchen window all the time,
Yeah,
like like
I know.
if they're not smart enough to avoid these things, then like something's gonna get them
Well,
eventually.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, the point is, we still need to consider all of the variables that like,
Mm.
okay, when you're weighing something, I mean, you know me, nuclear is the only way to go right now, and that is about as good as it gets. And there's some new stuff that's coming out that's like mind blowing how amazing it is, because that's the thing, like for the amount of materials and the footprint, um, nuclear is unrivaled. There is nothing that even comes close to that. Um, so, but solar and wind should be, I think, a part of the plan. That like there are certainly situations where it makes sense,
Yeah,
as like a supplementary power source or something like that.
right. Well, and when it comes to wind, there's definitely like other ways of doing it than giant sharp blades spinning around.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's plenty of different designs. Some of
Somewhere in
them.
Asia on the freeway, they've got these little like cylinder things which have like enclosed inside them like all the blade things that spin, but it's like there's like a grating around it or something, and the
Mhm.
wind from the cars going by turns it and it generates power. Like no
Yeah,
birds are gonna hit that and die.
no, that's true. Well, and yeah, and there's like I said, there's a variety of different options when it comes to all these things. But
Mhm.
I, yeah. Funny how like this is all tying together here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like there's kind of a planned obsolescence of Earth going on because there's so much like indifference to how much we're like destroying it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the problem too is like, as far as I see it, I think it's understanding and comprehension. Because the people who are the most vocal don't really understand how to solve a problem, and they kind of tend to view kind of things very myopically, where it's like, oh yeah, just do these things and that'll solve it. Like, no, it won't. There's this is a complex system we're dealing with here.
yeah,
You can't just do one cool trick and everything's going to be peachy. Like, we can actually, we 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 can have gas powered cars and aircraft and boats and trains and still reduce the carbon level at the same time. Like,
yeah.
it is totally possible.
Well, yeah, like the all or none stuff is a problem anywhere, but especially here because it's like, yeah, okay, like maybe getting rid of straws is stupid and inconvenient, but it does technically help a little bit. just a little bit, but at least
Yeah.
that's something, like, and
Well, and that's the problem though. It's like some of the little things don't even matter. Like it's like the impact of like banning straws or plastic bags or whatever, like it isn't that significant. Like the amount of benefit is fairly small compared to the impact on everybody and their life and
mhm,
how and the convenience and things like that. It's like, yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. And maybe just an awareness campaign, talk about that. Like, hey, be careful with your straws, man. You know, just consider that. Same thing. We did that with the can rings, right? The plastic ones.
yeah,
And now pretty much everybody, I just chucked one in the garbage. Everybody cuts the things now because we've all seen the videos and photos of like animals being strangled, and it's like,
yeah,
it takes a couple seconds to do that, and there you go.
hmm
And so it's like, yeah, we can have both things, and so I think, well, and it comes down to just a cultural shift, really. That like we need to be more careful and aware of the impact of things, and like I said, it comes down to understanding and comprehension that most people, uh just like they don't know what goes on inside a car, like under the hood, what any of that stuff is, how it works. A lot of people don't understand where their electricity comes from, their water. They don't understand where things go when they flush it down a toilet. They don't know how these systems work. They don't understand the supply chain that puts things on shelves in grocery stores and stuff like that.
You see,
And
when gasoline loves a spark plug, they get together.
yeah, and so that's the thing. I think we should be encouraging more knowledge of things, because once you understand things, now you can be like, oh yeah, I see how that can impact something, or you can look at it and be like, well, it's not really that big of a deal.
Mm.
But when you don't understand things, and some like teenager is up there talking about straws and how straws are killing everything and we need to ban them, then the people who don't know how
I
things
mean, I
work
mean,
are
like
like,
the soda can rings, it was also just like a specific animal getting like the turtle or something was like getting them jammed in its nose or some shit. Like so there were pictures for that too.
it
Um,
wasn't as prevalent as the can thing
I mean,
though.
but that doesn't matter. Like it is still something, some little bit, and like if everybody is doing a little bit and then a little bit more of something else and a little bit more of something else, like
Yeah,
that's
sure, sure.
a huge impact too.
But see, that's where it isn't a matter of legislation, it's a matter of information,
Education, yeah.
education. Yeah. Oh, hey, triple rhyme right there. um because like, yeah, after the straw thing, it's like I think the ban is dumb, but like now, after seeing that stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I wouldn't just chuck my soda out the window or throw it into the water or something. Like, no, I'm gonna be careful with that, and
Well,
responsibly throw it away.
most of us, it's not even our fault that this shit happens. Like you can put it in recycling or whatever bin you're supposed to do. You can rinse it out and be a good human being and all that stuff. And then when it gets picked up by the government paid trash worker people and put on a boat to China and then it falls off into the ocean,
Yeah.
that's not our fault.
No, and that's a responsibility thing. Like, I think we need to be more careful, just as a whole, as a people, as humans.
hmm
And that is one of the problems with all of this too, with like the environment and everything. It's like we can do, like, in the, let's say, the US or Germany or whatever, as a particular country, we could do everything possible. I mean, the US is pretty good, I would say, overall, compared to some places. We could do all that we can do, and it still might not make enough difference, because you have other countries like India or China that don't follow those rules and honestly don't give a shit, you know? And that's,
Yeah. I mean, I get that argument. Like that makes sense. Um, there's a guy in Britain that made a really good speech about that. And how it's like a priorities thing, like their priorities are more like, how am I going to get food in my mouth? They're not so worried about the environment and the rest of the people. They have to care about themselves and their immediate family and
Well,
in the
and
moment.
also
And
when it comes to like the governments of those areas,
yeah,
like India, the government is more concerned with growth than
right.
anything. Like, so they're not really too worried about the environmental impact of all the stuff that's ending up in oceans and in the ground and whatnot.
I'm telling you, like every fucking problem traces back to money. Like India, like you said, like you just said, like their whole focus is on growth, like GDP and all that shit, right? Like all that stuff is just like, why do we? Can we just have Gene Roddenberry's idea for a while? Like
Yeah,
try it out at least. Like
yeah, I know. Well, at least we
we
could
never try anything
we
different,
well,
ever.
and I guess
All we
there
ever
isn't.
say is that could never work. Let's not
Well,
try.
I think the problem is there's not a good inspiration as much. That like we what kind of example do we have to look to? I mean, back when Star Trek was really good, like very hopeful, like TNG especially, I'd say. Um, that was a great vision. That's something that people were like, yeah, yeah, maybe somehow we could get to that point because like
Hmm.
it just seemed like such a great
Well, a
world
whole
to live
bunch
in.
of tech just from Star Trek alone
Mm-hmm.
was inspired by a TV show.
Yeah,
Like why can't
and many
the
people,
sociological aspects be inspired by it?
well,
Like,
many people, lots of people went into space programs or
hmm,
science or engineering because of Star Trek.
yeah,
Like that was their when they were a kid. They're like, oh my god, I want to be like Scotty, or something, or
yeah,
LaForge, and it's like, yeah, you could do that, and a lot of people that inspire. We need more of that. That's
yeah.
really like this goes back to what I was saying. Cultural shift. It starts with us. It's that's it. Like we can talk and talk all we want about things and like expect
Talk and you talk.
yeah. um and we can expect like have this idea that like leaders or whatever politicians or whoever are gonna have these brilliant ideas to solve problems, but of course we know they're a bunch of idiots too. um
Yeah.
and like we don't need a top down solution, we need a bottom up solution.
Hmm.
That's really the like grassroots, kind of like the right to repair movement that's a grassroots kind of thing and it's taking hold. Make the maker movement as well. Like these things like just grow and spread and more people get involved and start doing it, and this is a good thing, and we could apply the same kind of process to anything else, to society, to the environment, to stuff like that. It's like, what we don't need to arrest somebody who litters in out in nature. We need to shame them. That's what we need to do. We need to mock them, and that has to be the way, so that you you don't do it out of fear of some kind of punishment. You don't do it because you don't want somebody to see you doing it,
Right.
because like it's going to get around and you're going to be viral and everybody's going to be hating on you and stuff. Like that's how you encourage responsible behavior, is through that route. I mean, it works that way with religion too. Like a lot of like I remember growing up in a Christian family, and it's like people wouldn't do stuff even when they were all by themselves because they knew God was watching, right? And
Yeah.
like that list, they're going to add some entries to that list, and you don't want that. And so,
Catholic guilt.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I know all about that.
we shouldn't, it shouldn't be over the top, but it's like certainly we do want that to where you don't want to be known as the litterer, you know,
Mm,
like that's or whatever that anything like that. And you want to be known as the humanitarian, the benefactor, the good guy, you know.
one thing I would like to see is more technology like 3D printing, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe with other substrates like metal and
Yeah.
stuff like that, so that like you could actually just make things you need instead of buying them. Even
Yeah.
like, make an exact freaking replica of the thing that you can't afford to buy.
Hmm.
Because if you're not selling it, like you're not really like disturbing the patent, right? Because the patent is all
True.
about like making money from something.
Well, and if you look at sites like Thingiverse, that community, it's a very open source, like,
Hmm.
free as in like freedom, basically. And yeah, 3D printers, dude, it's as close to a replicator as we currently have.
Yeah.
Um, and it is, I've 3D printed stuff instead of buying them. I fixed a lot of things using 3D printed pieces and parts, and it's very cheap to operate and getting cheaper. Now, like, my old ass 3D printer was like $300, and now you can buy one that's better than that for about $70. You know, and the filament is cheap. In fact, there's people who have taken soda bottles and built like a little thing to produce filament from soda bottles and stuff, and various other things. Yeah, and the different types of materials. There's ones that do wood. There's a whole bunch of different things you can print depending on your printer. But yeah, even you could even have a village somewhere that has, they pool their money together and get a 3D printer and some boxes of filament or something, and now they can make basically anything. In fact, you can 3D print a little rig that you can stick a phone on, and you turn this crank and the phone rotates around it. Basically, it's a 3D scanner. So you can clone stuff that way too.
Oh, wow.
So off the shelf stuff. Yeah, like, yeah, and the thing is, this is the cool thing, it's just getting better and cheaper. And so that's a game changer. I mean,
Hmm.
you have 3D printed houses now, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, which is a huge deal. And that is fairly new, but it's going to improve.
I mean,
Um,
like that to me is kind of one of the foundations on the road to like being truly a post-scarce society is
yeah.
just kind of like you said, just more from the ground up sort of thing, like the makers and the repairers and all that stuff, like
Mm.
let them be, like, even let them thrive on helping others who can't do those things
Hmm.
necessarily or so well anyway. And
Absolutely.
and
Well,
and
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 this is, oh,
that
sorry,
with
go
like
ahead.
with other things too, like
Hmm.
with lab grown meat
Yeah.
and like making it so it's a little bit easier to shop in other countries for drugs and stuff like that,
Hmm.
because it's
Well,
not really something you can 3D print. It's a
yeah,
little more complicated, but
that's true. Well, there's the biohacker community too, and like various things, whether it be like doing things to yourself, or like developing new things or whatever. There's a lot of kind of, it's sort of underground because the regulations are just so strict and so crazy. But
yeah,
there are people sort of secretly like scientists secretly
right.
working on making stuff like creating another insulin, that kind of thing.
I once dosed myself with a bunch of gamma radiation, and when I get mad, I just kind of black out.
Yeah.
I go through a lot of clothes.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, but it like that's good, and we need more of that. We need people to just kind of take control underground and build, I guess, like because it's pretty clear government in general is ineffective. It does not make our lives better. It does not make our lives safer in general. Like, the way we do that is with ourselves, a community of people. You build up and you make it yourself. And but what you have to do, it can't be a closed loop, right? You've got to like bring
Yeah.
more people in, and it has to be open, so that way the barrier to entry is really low and anybody can participate. Because like even in development of drugs and things like that, you can have a lot of participants who are not necessarily super genius scientists or whatever, who are doing some of the other stuff,
Right.
like the tedious task of testing things or whatever,
Yeah.
like
Like me,
going through
like me.
various. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like
I
you don't
wasn't like a
necessarily.
PhD or anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
and you need that. It takes a village, really,
hmm.
to do those things. And like, but that once we get to that point, I think when that starts growing more and more, it'll get to the point where we really don't need really anything up top, because what purpose would it serve at that point? you know
I kind of wonder if like early on in human societies where in the village you'd have the village elders, right?
yeah.
The ones with all the wisdom and experience, and they would give people guidance, and people would
Mhm.
look to them for direction, and
Or to
you could,
resolve a dispute.
yeah, and you could argue that that was like uh, an early form of government,
Hmm.
and now I look at our government, and it's definitely elders, but but back
Not wise.
then, elders weren't that old.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, well,
so like
and
there does come a point where like, yeah, you've seen a lot in the world
mhm.
and your mind is still pretty sharp and you can contribute a lot
Yeah,
and be a good leader. But then things start going downhill and it's maybe time to just relax and
yeah.
let other people
Sure, sure, exactly.
handle that
Well,
stuff
and
because
that's
you do need some guidance. You do need some help.
it.
You
And well,
do need coordination and project
of
management and
course,
stuff like that,
yes, of course. And like the thing is, not everybody knows everything,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so you will have elders for various. That this is what I would see. I like the kind of old school tribal structure, maybe without like the tribalism where it's us
Yeah,
versus them, and but like as far as a culture where we look to the experienced people, the wise ones, and we go to them for answers and things like that. Because yeah, like there's a lot of people. You need that, of
yeah.
course. Everybody needs that. Depending, I mean, I'm an elder. There have been a lot of people who come to me to help solve problems, like
I mean,
or
we
figure
do still
something out.
have that. There, consultants, life coaches, you could see these
Hmm.
positions as village elders.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, we do have that stuff, but it's a little less accessible
Yeah.
than it used to be. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where it's like I'd much rather see somebody who's kind of like the one that people look to for
Right.
guidance, being somebody who actually has a resume, like actual proof of experience that can
Right.
demonstrate that they know those things. Like why, people. Well, it's sort of like in a lot of these groups for like science and engineering and stuff like that. The kind of oversee standards and stuff. They're composed of industry professionals. Those are the people who go to these meetings and decide on things like, okay, this is what we now decided this is the standard. It isn't just a bunch of schmucks from the street. You didn't just go to like a bar that like and hire a bunch of people that you don't know and like, hey, why don't you tell us, you know, how we should be doing things? No, no, that's dumb. You need people who actually have experience in those fields, and you need choices as well. Can't just be one person or whatever. Uh,
No.
and that's where it's got to be like a voluntary sort of thing where like, oh, okay, if you and I have a dispute, instead of going to court, maybe we say like, okay, well, there's like three or four different elder or elders or whatever, these wise ones that we could go to, and we look at their reviews, and like everybody seems to like this one person, and we agree in advance like, okay, whatever they say we're going to do, that's what we're going to do. And we go to them, and there we go, a contract kind of thing.
Yep.
And then if it doesn't go your way, well, tough, that because it will go your way another time. That's and chances are it had to not go your way. That was probably the right course, and you just don't know it at the time.
Yeah.
That's why we have the elders who do know things. They've seen there, they've been there, and they've done that.
I don't I don't know much about, like the early village elders sort of thing. Like, did you have to bring them shells or some kind of payment for their wisdom?
Oh, I'm sure in some cultures that was just the way it was done. And I think in some cultures it was not like the elder demanded that. It was more like society expected that you would give some kind of gift.
Yeah.
That like you would be people would look down on you if you just walked up there with nothing and like, hey, tell me what to do. You'd be like, what an asshole. So yeah, I mean, I oh man, there's so many angles here. Jeez. But I'm definitely in your line of thinking about like we need to kind of move away from this kind of structured, like this centralized kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because the nice thing about the ground up thing is a distributed system, which is always a more robust system. Like like with electricity, a distributed grid is always better than a centralized grid.
Mm.
Always. And I mean, we see it in the US, of course, because like there's only a couple of hubs essentially. And so if something goes wrong in one, it may go wrong through like a whole huge swath of the country.
You know what's kind of cool here in Germany? There's no power lines. At
Yeah.
least at least not anywhere that I've been
I think
so
there's
far.
above ground high voltage transmission lines, but when it's like last mile stuff is all underground. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so like during storms and stuff, like power outages are very rare. They'd be very localized, like to a
Mm.
neighborhood or something.
I think the only time you'd see an issue with underground stuff is if there was like an earthquake or a flood.
Yeah, we're not
That
on a
might,
fault line,
no.
but I mean there's rivers and stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
I think underground is a way better way to go, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
It blows my mind that like underneath roads, every road doesn't have like a tunnel underneath it. A big tunnel where you can have all kinds of utilities running through it. Like
yeah.
that's how
That's
it
a good
ought to be.
idea.
I mean, you see people digging roads up and stuff all over. Why not just start putting the infrastructure in place so that over time now you have these tunnels underneath the road
Yeah,
and go from there. Obviously, it's really hard once it's already established, but if you start new, like I don't know, some kind of, I guess a development company comes in, they buy a bunch of vacant land and they start putting in roads and houses and whatnot. Well, okay, have tunnels.
yeah.
Start it now, like make it easy. There's so many advantages to that. And like
Well,
yeah, I
when you
don't
start
understand.
building your little commune in the desert, maybe you should do that.
That'll be it will definitely be that way. Yeah. I mean, initially I'll probably have above ground. Well, you never know. I don't know. It depends on how that
Yeah,
goes.
I would definitely love to see stuff like that where, new development bothers to take a moment and say, you know what in the civil engineering realm could we be doing better from
Yeah.
the get-go? Like,
Yes. Well,
like what would make this easier? What would make it better? Like intersections, is there some like funky new way we could like completely design intersections so that it's not a mess?
yeah,
Let's do that now,
I know.
like
I have all kinds of ideas about that. Yeah, and it well, it kind of goes back to an extent what you're saying about money being kind of a problem.
Hmm.
And in this case, like civil engineering, it's kind of twofold because you have all the contractors that are building stuff, and then you have the government, which monopolizes control over that. So like, and they work together, they collude and stuff. So that like for the government, there's no incentive to get better or to
Hmm.
even do anything to improve things. And for the contractors, there's not an incentive to do a good job or even suggest improvements or whatever. Because, like, well, it's the government. The check's going to roll in. They just said, build
Yeah.
a road. We're just going to build it. Like, and that's a
And
problem.
afterthoughts are like 95% of how the roads are, like
Yeah.
because well, roundabouts for one thing. If a roundabout is planned in advance and
Mm,
built properly, I absolutely agree that it's smooth flowing and if it's logically laid out and
yeah.
has good signage and stuff. But when you just try to cram it into a space just because there was a lot of traffic, guess
Hmm.
what? Now there's a lot of traffic and nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And
Like
there are
it's
definitely
even
ways,
more of a mess. Like,
yeah, there are ways of making things work smoothly. But again, there's no incentive to do that because they're just going to put it in there and do the bare minimum.
hmm.
But the really expensive bare minimum, mind you, like that's always the thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
how
there's this one roundabout in my city where it's two lanes, right?
mm,
But instead of like lanes that kind of merge in as you're going around,
mm,
um, it's just one little lane in the middle that goes in a circle and then an outside lane. And the outside lane is constantly full, blocking anybody else trying to get in from using the center lane to get to where they want to go. It's just, it's the dumbest shit
uh,
in the world.
well, two more than one lane on a roundabout is problematic always.
It is. It is.
Like
Yeah.
a one lane roundabout is pretty efficient.
Hmm.
In particular, wherever any intersection where there's a main thoroughfare with like side streets that occasionally have some cars, like that's where it really works.
Yeah.
Major intersections, I think when you're talking like very complex major intersections, you still need regular traffic lights and stuff like that. Um, but there you go. You just do it smart, you know?
Yeah.
And well, and that's where like, it just goes back to like ground up community needs to do it. Like if roads were private, like if every neighborhood, like I own a part of this road outside my house, and so do my neighbors, and we pay for it. Like, you bet your ass we'd be making it good.
Yeah.
It's my road. It's right outside my house, you know? And if it were a business that had customers coming in, yeah, you bet your ass they'd also be making a good road because optics, right? You don't want like a mall to have like dirt roads leading into it. No, they want it to be like opulent and nice and smooth as glass, well lit and stuff like that. Cause like, yeah, that
Yeah.
would turn people off. It's like, what the hell is this, a Wild West or something? Like, do I need to be riding a horse into this mall? Like, what the hell? So, but I think, and you'd have some major roads that would be toll roads. But as I've probably talked about, I'm sure I've talked about this before, but like, yeah, you'd have toll roads, but the tolls would be fairly minimal, as private toll roads do tend to be. Um, those roads also tend to be a lot nicer than the government ones. But the fact is, we're already paying tolls in taxes. Like,
Yeah.
if you didn't have to pay any tax, like gas tax or property tax related to roads, and it was just all private, and like, okay, well, maybe to drive up and down I-5, it costs you a couple bucks. But you save money because you're already in the gas tax. You're spending like 20 bucks or something.
You know what? I just had a kind of a cool idea for, going back to what we were talking about earlier about doing every little bit to help the environment and such.
Mhm.
Um, when you were talking about well-lit roads, I was
Mhm.
thinking like, oftentimes roads are not so well lit anymore because they're trying to like conserve energy.
Yeah.
But what if what if all the existing light poles were modified to be charging stations for drones, and every time a car comes by, a drone deploys and just shines a super bright LED over it until it needs to charge, and just kind of like a relay race, the next drone picks up and follows the car, and
That's an
like
interesting idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I've noticed that trend too. You're right. Like the shutting down a lot of street lights and also changing them out for LEDs, which do not work as well. They are well. There's two problems. One, they're too dim. Two, they're too bright. If that makes any sense, like you can't see. Like I remember when I was younger, driving around when we had the old like sodium lights and stuff like that, or mercury vapor lights. I can't remember which one it was, but basically the monochromatic kind of pinkish colored lights. You could see really well. I could see pedestrians. You could see kind of off to the sides. You could see really far down the road. And now with
Mm,
these LED ones, it's this cool temperature light, and it doesn't. I find myself, especially in the rain, I can't even see where the lanes are, and half the time I can't see what is on the side of the road. Like the pedestrians, it might be waiting to cross or starting to cross, or maybe whatever, a dog or
yeah.
something. Um, and so it's like, okay, I can't see the road very well. However, these bright ass points of light are overhead, like moving. So that's really distracting. And it's also like really bright on the top end. So if I look up, it kind of blinds me for a second. Like, well, so it's like, well, okay, yeah, I get it, eco stuff, but maybe this is something worth taking a hit for, just so for safety's sake, right?
Mm,
Like maybe we can compensate in other ways so that we have actual good streetlights. Like
yeah.
I even if we can go back to that other stuff was actually kind of efficient for the amount of light it put out. Um, and yeah, I don't think LEDs are the way to go. I mean, the drone idea is kind of clever, actually. Like in a infrequently traveled road,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like where it would shine a light basically ahead of you and follow. Because we can already do that. Drones, like my drone that I
Yeah.
have, can already do that.
Not to
Um,
mention it really helps your visibility from far away.
yeah,
Somebody can see the drone coming their way and be
yeah,
like, "Oh, there must be a car under that drone," you know?
sure. And then you have your headlights on top of it, so it's like
Yeah.
now there's like extra visibility,
You can
which
have
is great.
solar panels on the poles and stuff, and
Mhm. Yeah.
it, I think something like that would be super cool.
Well, and honestly, if we were running nuclear, you could just run it off the grid and it'd be fine.
Hmm.
Especially with some of the new designs, dude. I am holy moly. Like,
But then you got to go to the trouble of running all the wire to it and
but it's
everything.
already running to the light posts. You have existing wire going to it,
Yeah.
so just utilize that. It. Yeah, there's got to be something. I don't know. Just the point is that nobody is trying anything new. Well, not really, because there's no reason to. They
Yeah.
still get a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, like the government isn't going out of business if they don't provide good roads. Which if it were a private road and there were potholes all over the place and it was all dangerous and stuff like that, they'd be going out of business.
Hmm.
They would not be able. People would not drive on that road.
I wonder, would it be allowed for like a private company to do something like that drone streetlight idea? Because I know the conspiracy theorists would like come out of the woodwork for like, oh, the government's putting cameras in the drones to follow us and blah 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 or something, you know?
Well, and that would be is if it were a private company, you'd be probably better off at that point. Because again, I've talked about this ad nauseum. The only danger if a private company has your information, other than like it getting out on accident, but that happens with the government. The biggest risk if a private company has your personal information and knows stuff about you is that they're going to try to sell you something.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like that's the worst they could do.
Hmm.
Whereas the government, they could do a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah, well, now that you mention it, something like that could even be funded in an advertising sense. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we see the path you take to and from work goes
Mhm.
by these stores. We're gonna send you coupons for those stores,
Sure.
like,
Yeah, why not? Doesn't hurt
stuff like that
anything.
is harmless surveillance, like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, because
we,
it's
we
just
we
a
should do kind of an episode on like harmless surveillance,
yeah, yeah,
because
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
some people think like, oh my God, you're taking my information, and they just automatically like get all rigid, and it's like, well, hang on, like, is it a big deal?
Well,
Like, really?
because like I said, the risks with a private company versus the government, it's like people are oh
Hmm.
no, I don't consent to sharing information with like Amazon or some other company or whatever. But then they'll happily go to a government place and just give them all their information, including like their social security number and everything. Like, oh yeah, they're safe. No
Yeah.
problem, man. It's like,
But
well,
if I would go to Fred Meyer and swipe my card, and every month I'd get a stack of coupons with like 85% of which I could actually use,
yeah,
because it knows what I buy, and like
exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, and
like
you can have roads or your system even just be funded by just regular old advertising, an ad
mm,
banner or something that some company pays to have their stuff put up there on that road, and then that
in
funds.
addition to light, it like shines a little hologram ad in front of you.
Yeah. Well, that's like the Blade Runner style thing, which we might we might see something like that. I think it would only exist temporarily. This is the thing, like people think this dystopian kind of thing is just going to build up to some level and just stick around and get worse and worse, and it's like, nah, human beings, they'll get to the back to the earth movement like they did in the 70s and stuff like that. It's like, nah, it's a cycle. It'll be a trend for a while, and then people that's why, like, if you look back in like the old movies and documentaries talking about what it's going to be like in the future, the vision of the future was so crazily different than it is now. Now it's like you look now and it's like, yeah, we have some technology, but if you just look around, it kind of looks the same as it did like 100 years ago. you know
Yeah.
like it's pretty much the same. We don't have all this crazy stuff because nobody really wants it.
What was it? Popular Mechanics that would do that from time to time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like a magazine issue with like how things will look 50 years in the future or
Yep.
something. And
And it was based on like prototype designs, which some of those
like,
were really cool. There were some clever ideas. And
as a gag, they should just release one now where it's like Fred Flintstone cars and like,
yeah, using a pterodactyl to like, open a can or whatever, like, or no, it was a record player. That's right. Oh man. Well, and I think all that stuff can coexist. In fact, I think a lot of, like we've talked about before, it's like,
pterodactyls and record players.
no,
Nah,
no, no,
there's a
the
few
different
million years there.
the kind of the different ways of living. Um,
Mhm.
they can definitely coexist, and they should. We should have a variety of different things. Like I'd like to see more tiny houses. Honestly, I really that if I were mayor of Tacoma, and I would make it a point to remove all restrictions on tiny houses. Make that my thing. Like I don't want I don't want there to be any barrier. Like people can build tiny houses. We need more of them because housing is a thing, and tiny houses are cheap. They can fit in a small footprint. They can fit in a backyard. It's like I could put one in the backyard at my house, and it's not a particularly big backyard, or in the driveway, which is a particularly big driveway. Um, and and I could rent it out, and then now somebody could be just paying me like, okay, as long as you just pay my utility bill, that's rent, you know, and there you go, and no problem. There's one home for somebody, and if more and more people did that, we wouldn't the housing there would not be a housing crisis whatsoever. Um, but there's a lot of barriers, government barriers to doing that. And I'd like to see that. I'd also like to see zoning completely disappear, because what we need too is we need more of this used to exist a long time ago. And I'm sure I brought this up in the past. But a long time ago, I remember a few places in my youth, but there would be a house, right, that had a large front yard, and in the front yard was another building that was a business, or
Yep.
kind of maybe connected to it or whatever. So they had a business and their house on the same piece of land, and there you
Near
go.
the house you grew up in, there was that Irish laundromat or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right
Yeah.
on, right off of Cedar and
Mm-hmm.
21st or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we were looking for a location for our business, there was that one on the corner of Stevens, North Stevens and 30th.
Yep.
And that was MRF Construction took it over, but it like it was a house attached to a
Mm.
storefront.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, this is perfect. I think it was a little bit more than the place that we ended up deciding on, but it's like, yeah, you have your house, but you
Hey,
can just walk down a set of stairs, open a door, and you're in your place of work.
that still exists here in Germany. Like, I'll be
Mm-hmm.
driving through a neighborhood and all of a sudden there's like a freaking like a Lidl or something
Mm-hmm.
just in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yeah, but see, that's good. This is the
Mhm.
thing. Like the ones that exist, like in Tacoma, they're all grandfathered in. You can't do that
Right.
new now,
Right.
because of zoning, and there's some other stuff. But like, think about the even just the environmental impact of that and the community impact. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if like a fifth of the houses in a neighborhood had a little shop attached to it that was their place of business, like a hairdresser or a I don't know, a tire repair place, like a bicycle shop or something. Just a little bakery or something like that. And it's just kind of all, so you don't have to drive anywhere. You just walk over there and go to their place of business. Like, and you get to meet other neighbors along the way, which never happens anymore, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
people are all shut in and closed off and stuff, and this would open it up, and it would help with commerce. It would help with like just the finances of the community too, because like, oh yeah, it would also help if, imagine if a significant portion of the population of an area worked from home, like had their place of business on their own land where their house is or whatever, um and now they don't have to commute to like
Yeah.
Seattle or whatever. So there you go. They can do that. You can have that apartment buildings too. This is something I would advocate for as well. It, build all the apartment buildings for sure. We need many more of them, and they need to be tall. But the bottom level shops,
Yeah.
bottom level, like when the gaming cafe that me and my friend started, that building was like that. The
Yep.
bottom layer, the bottom floor was a bunch of shops, and then there were apartments above. So
Yeah.
it's like, in theory, if you got one of the shop spaces and an apartment at the same time, well, there you go. You just walk down the stairs and
That's
you're at
all over
work.
the place here too. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and that makes sense because there's not that much room here for the
Mm-hmm.
amount of people living, like 80 million people in Germany, and it's really kind of tiny compared to the US,
Isn't it like the
which
size
has
of Texas?
350 million.
Yeah.
And so you think about that, like
Yeah. Isn't it? Is Germany is about the size of Texas, right? Or maybe a little bigger.
probably somewhere around there, yeah. It's always hard to tell when they're different shapes, but
Yeah, I know. That's true. Well, yeah, and I'd like to see a
you
lot of
can,
that.
I mean, okay, so like when I drove to Leipzig in East Germany,
Mm-hmm.
it was about 6 hours. So, I mean, like you can kind of cross the country in any one direction in like 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
So that can kind of give you like an estimate of how big it is.
Yeah.
Um,
So it would be
like
a little bigger than
Washington,
Texas
east
then.
to west is about six.
No, no,
Well,
that's true. Yeah. All the
no,
way.
about
Yeah.
eight. It might be about a little bigger than Washington, I think,
Okay. All right. That sounds
actually,
right. Okay.
with 80 million people in
Yeah, exactly. Just
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe that's the point, is like we ought to be thinking about this now. I mean, like in the US or whatever. I'd like to see it go everywhere. But I mean, I live in the US, so that's where, the place I'm thinking of. Um, but I would definitely, we need to, this is a thing too, again, that can be done societally, ground up, where you basically create a movement of people who want that. They demand it, they expect it. Get rid of the NIMBYs, which most of them, by the way, are probably close to death. Um, it's like the boomers and stuff like that. Um, it's a good time to change our ways to create a better future, I think.
Okay, so Washington is about 71,000 square miles and Germany is 138 square miles, so roughly tw twice the size.
Mm-hmm.
Germany has 80 million and Washington has 8 million.
Yeah.
That's
It's
7.9 million.
10
So,
times.
yeah.
Oh
10
man.
times as many people in like just twice as much area. Like
And y'all don't even have an ocean to go get some breathing room like we do here.
not much, not much. There's
Yeah.
North Sea, well, like the Baltic Sea
Yeah, yeah.
but just like a little sliver.
Just
Like, and
it's like everybody's all crowded in there and you're like, man, I thought ah, this is even worse.
yeah,
I'm going back to Berlin.
just enough for Hamburg to be considered a port town.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I mean all these things we talked about, it's all good. I'd love to see more of this. And I there's a lot of people who kind of have a real pessimistic view and think that things are really going to suck. And I don't think so. I mean, it depends on how we play the cards. But the thing is, the potential for the future to be really bright does exist. It's here. We just have to grab it and like just do it. Well, that's a Nike slogan, I guess. So, but because like, what are we waiting for? It does, this is the thing. All these people, I see all these people like bitching and moaning and blah 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 and woe is me and like, just shut up, quit complaining, and do something. Or you can even use your voice to do something. You can use your mind. You can learn about things and help other people and try to move forward. Like, uh, and it's the same old thing where people, they're like, oh, there ought to be a law, this and that, and vote for this and vote for that. Like, fucking stop voting. Just stop participating. That's useless. That's exactly why things are the way they are, is because that's the only energy people put into changing the community or changing the world. That is not going to work. You know
Those
who?
frogs sing useless.
Yeah, yeah. You know who ends up going into those sorts of positions that you're exalting? Um, Narcissists, sociopaths.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
these are not good people.
yeah.
Like, they don't care about you. You know who does probably care about you? Your neighbor or somebody that works at the local grocery store or something. Like, hey, you live in the same area. Like, that's where you begin there and try to make a difference. Because it's like, you don't even have to walk the street per se, but you could learn so that you can share information with other people. You could be the elder that people come to when they're working on a project, and you could be the one that like is an absolute expert in all kinds of things.
The elder streetwalker.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, but of course the saying, which I believe is true, knowledge is power. Like, it absolutely is. So stop complaining, stop whining, stop you just sitting there doing nothing, moping, and learn about things. If there's a system of oppression that's controlling you, or you feel like you're stuck or trapped in this system, learn about it. Know
Yeah,
your enemy.
yeah.
Like, you have to. You can't. It's not going to do any good to complain if you don't even understand how things work. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have any other thoughts. I think we've gone through a lot of things, but
Well, as far as learning goes, like, I feel like what we do on this show is like, we might talk for an hour or two each week,
mhm.
and, it's a good chunk of it maybe isn't all that poignant, but like sprinkled in there is a whole lot of really good stuff.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and so we're going to attempt to begin compiling books using the help of AI to read over transcripts of our episodes and find those little nuggets so that we don't
Mhm.
have to sit through thousands of hours of us talking.
Mhm.
Um,
Not that we
and
don't
then
mind doing that.
and then we do, we are like me anyway, because like writing is like my thing. We'll do the actual writing, of course. Um, but yeah, we want to start compiling like the good stuff into
Mhm.
books and kind of putting it out there for people, whether they're fans of the show or not, to kind of have access to these thoughts and maybe spur thoughts of their own.
Yeah.
Maybe it will inspire people who have a lot of talent in a particular area that can make something happen, and
Mhm.
or networking or whatever,
Or people have maybe have financial resources to actually
Hmm.
put something into action.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
even in it, like politics too. Like there may be people who might change their mind about something and maybe actually make a change for the better. Like, and that's one of the things. Like, wouldn't it be? It'd be just very bizarre for an anarchist to be mayor. But I've actually considered running for mayor of Tacoma. Like on
do it
that, yeah. I mean, of course,
because
it'd be
I mean,
weird calling my boss up and be like, yeah, I'm not coming into work today or for the foreseeable future because I'm fucking mayor now.
so you better be nice to me,
Yeah, exactly.
or I'll run you out of town.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But no,
Yeah.
that I think that would be a great idea. Like uh, I've thought about working in religious organizations as an
Mhm.
atheist. Like
Yeah. Why not?
the different perspectives can bring uh, good things to it, and it's not like because I'm an atheist, I can't be seen like commingling with religious people or something. That's ridiculous,
Quite the
So
contrary. You ought to
yeah,
be. Like that's
right,
kind of
yeah.
the whole thing.
So yeah, like
Hmm.
anarchists should actually be in government, like
Hmm.
more than anybody,
Yeah.
because they're the ones that are actually going to be concerned with doing things the most um, concise way.
Hmm. And being concerned with the actual populace of an
Right.
area
Yeah.
rather than just like the bottom line or glory and fame or who knows what. I don't know what people, some people like to get in there because, like I said, the type of people that it attracts because
Yeah.
they want to boss people around basically.
Yeah.
They want to be the big cheese, and I don't want to be that. But it's like, hey, if I can make a difference, then why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I don't have a political angle, like that. Just like if you're like if I were an atheist and I was like head of a church, I wouldn't be like we're going to shut the doors. I'd be like, hey, let's practice our faith, such as it is, and maybe make some changes that would make everything better, and maybe encourage people to think differently, which is good. But like, yeah, I wouldn't. If I were mayor, I wouldn't be like, oh, we're gonna shut down Tacoma. No, it'd be like I want to make things better, and it'd be like, hey, you know what? I don't know all the stuff, so I want everybody to bring their ideas to the table, and not just the people that work for the government, but everybody. We can take surveys, we can take polls, we can have emails come in, whatever, and that's it. Like basically, I would want to be a project manager for the
Hmm.
city, like basically that, not be a
Yeah.
dictator or anything like that. And I think it would improve things a lot.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah, I just
I
might.
mean, a few years ago, I thought about running for governor. Like, not that I would have had a shot in hell, but like,
Oh God, no.
at least to amplify what we have to say a little bit more, you
Hmm.
know, to get
Yeah.
people to just start listening and thinking.
Well, and you don't need to start all the way at the top. I mean, just
Yeah,
your local area. And the thing is, I was born and raised in Tacoma. I've lived here all my life, so this is my home.
mhm.
And I care about it greatly. And I want it to be better. And I think that right there is the starting point to go on. And yeah, but if you start in a place where it's like, hey, you know what, I might actually have a chance to become mayor of a city, um, start there, because that
Yeah.
can actually happen. It's possible.
Your
um,
dad held a kind of high position in Fircrest, right?
City council, yeah.
City council.
Hmm. Oh, in Tacoma,
Oh, really? Oh,
he was actually, I think my dad was acting mayor of Fircrest for a while
oh, wow.
because of something that happened there. And like, yeah, I don't remember all the details, but yeah, my dad's been in.
Somebody drove 27 miles per hour and
Yeah, it was the mayor, and then they just threw the mayor in jail. Like, all right, well, you're up. It's your turn now. But yeah, it's possible. It's totally doable, and I would like to think that I have pretty good ideas, but it's also the mission that I have, which okay, I will listen to all ideas, anything that anybody comes up with, because maybe somebody's got a better idea than I have. Or maybe there's a pitfall that I'm not aware of, that it's like, oh, well, we can't do that because of this thing. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even know about that. So here you go. It'd be like, make it a project.
yeah.
Like participation, everybody participates. Because that's one of the things too. It's like we have these stupid meetings and stuff, Tacoma and stuff, and people will come up and talk, and they get their 5 minutes or whatever, and then they just kind of get dismissed, and it's like, oh, thanks for talking, and then they don't do anything. That's like, no, 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 no. I want to actually do something. That's the thing,
Yeah.
and I want people to feel like their voice is heard. Um, that would be my thing. I just wish we were famous YouTubers, then we could leverage that.
Yeah. Well, we went quite a quite a wide gamut of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, I would say that our angle is kind of talking about the future,
Hmm.
sort of like betterment of society in general, I think.
Just kind of making the best of what we got
Yeah.
and and opening our minds to maybe cutting the chaff of the stuff that isn't working so well. Um,
Sure. Exactly. Well, and actually, you were talking about with the book and everything, and um, one thing that I think, even if not a lot of people see our discussions, we're sort of honing our skills and our knowledge, and like, it's almost kind of like, I feel to some extent like our episodes, our recordings are sort of a proving ground, maybe a little petri dish where
hmm.
we put things in there and see what grows. And like, it's because certainly we've there are a lot of thoughts that I've had that I would have never had if it weren't for our conversations, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it goes the other way.
Well, like this idea I've had lately about um, an integrity-based currency of sorts kind of evolved from a few years ago on the show where I don't know if you remember this, but I talked about an idea of smart currency
Mm-hmm.
where the coin itself carried a fluctuating um, value of its own, like kind
Mm-hmm.
of detached from from the net, uh,
Yeah.
as it
Yeah.
were. So like
I would.
and I think it was kind of randomized or something. So it's like you couldn't really become wealthy because you never know what coin you're gonna have
Mhm.
or something, and that just it sort of was like a precursor to,
Yeah, and that was a product of our conversation.
yeah, because
Like,
it's just like, you know what, this isn't working. There's got to be something else. And so
mhm.
the gears start turning, and then that idea was like a little clunky.
Yeah.
Um, but then something a little bit more polished came from
Well,
that, you
you're
know,
going
and
through like a
so on and so
scientific,
forth.
you're going through a scientific or engineering process, basically.
Yeah.
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 Actually, I would encourage, and everybody should probably look this up. Look up the Ithaca hour. It's sort of a kind of informal currency. I don't want to go into all the detail because there's a lot to it, but just look up the Ithaca hour. It's quite fascinating,
Hmm.
and this might lead you to some other ideas too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think we've covered so many things. God,
Yeah.
really good though. I like, and everything all kind of ties together because it is sort of about the future. Um, and of course, we're always talking about how to improve things. Because I don't like I was saying before about stop complaining and do something. Um, I don't. I'm that's my own personal. I mean, oh yeah, I'm one to go on a rant. I absolutely will go on rants, but like I believe, and I generally try to put this into my own life wherever possible to actually do something or at least learn about something like that kind of thing, not
Yeah.
just sit there and accept my fate. That's the wrong way to be. All
Yeah. All right. Well,
right.
I think we've rambled on quite a bit from right to repair to the environment to roundabouts and village elders and
Yeah.
coming up with ideas for drone streetlights and
Street lighting, yeah, street construction, building construction, things like that. Man, yeah. Whew, covered a lot.
yeah.
It's a good one. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed this and you can leave your comments down there what you feel about any of this stuff. Um, yeah, we'll be back next week. Wait, yes,
Mm,
we will be back next week. The week after that, we won't be. Yeah,
probably.
we're
I might be a
yeah.
little late, but hopefully
Okay,
not.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just we'll figure it out. It's all good. All right. Well, see everybody else later, and yeah.